It's the Evan edition. The Evan edition. The Evan edition. The Evan edition. It's the Evan edition. The Evan edition. The Evan edition. The Evan edition. It's the Evan edition.
Welcome back to the Evan edition, where we talk movies, TV, comics, pop culture, and everything in between. I am your host, Evan Bernstein. And today I'm honored to welcome a uniquely driven creator, educator, thought leader in the comic book community, Victor Dandridge, affectionately known in the industry as the hardest working man in comics. Victor is a self-published comic book writer, publisher, graphic designer, and convention moderator whose work bridges traditional storytelling with community education. He is the founder of Vantage In-House Productions, a creator-owned imprint that has produced critically engaging titles like The Samaritan, Origins Unknown, The Trouble with Love, and the novella series 8 Minutes, all rooted in innovation and independent spirit. Beyond writing and publishing, Victor is deeply passionate about using comics as a tool for education. He launched the You Create Comics line to help young readers and creators alike connect with comics and with learning and creativity. He's also a regular presence at comic conventions, moderating panels, sharing insights nationwide. On social platforms, he embraces the moniker the hardest working man in comics, not just as a nickname, but as a mission to innovate, create, and elevate voices in the small press and indie comic scene. Victor's work exemplifies the fusion of creative passion and grassroots community building. And we're thrilled to dive into his journey and some recent topics. Victor, welcome to the show, my friend.
Evan. Man, I got a lot to live up to now. Like that was a powerful intro, my friend. Wow. Okay.
You have a
Thank you
powerful
for that.
background. You deserve that intro.
Thank you so very much. No, this is it's a true honor. It was a pleasure to get to meet you at one of those recent comic conventions. Big shout out to Fan Expo San Francisco just last November, which doesn't seem like that long ago, but at the same time seems forever ago. But yeah, I'm very excited to chat with you, man.
Yeah, no, that was really great. That was my first convention. And it was a convenient one, I mean, yeah, I've never been the biggest convention guy. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that
what
was my
presence
first
you made, man.
Thank you. No, I think you were my first panel probably ever with James Edward Olmos.
Wow.
So that was my first experience of that. And I mean, you just have this way with honoring the guests that you're moderating for and the respect to the crowd and the questions that the crowd wants to know. It was really beautiful to behold. And then we're just running into each other on the floor. I'm like, oh man, he would be great to, ask these comic book, best comic movie or versus questions. And it was fantastic. And yeah, as you guys probably saw, I was posting all the shorts of our mini little interview and asked Victor if he would ever come on. And this is the type of dude Victor is. He loves this world and he loves the people that embody it. And it's just, It's such a world where you can really be yourself and own the stuff that you love to geek out about. And as all you guys know, that's what this show's about. And so he was so kind to bless us with his presence, be here to talk about the stuff that we love. And we got a lot of stuff to get into. We got Dan Trachtenberg from Predator Badlands Prey signing a Paramount deal. What does that mean for the epic Predator franchise that he set up? Avengers Secret Wars, not Doomsday. We're going to get into that. Maybe being split into 2 movies, which might be best because it seems like it's going to be jam-packed. We got some actual spoilers because I think this is for sure confirmed that we know who is on that Fantastic Four ship in the end credit scene of
Oh.
Thunderbolts. So we will
Mhm.
put spoilers up. So I don't want to piss anyone off. I know how people can get very particular, and we got a lot of
Mhm.
other fun stuff. The Senate with Netflix buying Warner Brothers had some tidbits, and theater goers are not too happy. But before we get into that, Victor, I just wanted to pick your brain because you got a lot of stuff going on. You got Vantage
Yes.
in-house productions. You create comics. Let's start with Vantage in-house productions. How did you come up with this? What is this all about? We want to know the tidbits, my friend.
I got you. I got you. So I have a very comic booky origin story, which is as a kid, I did not like to read, right? Like I love pop culture, movies. I'm a kid of the 80s. So like I was rooted in pop culture. So they announced on the news that Superman is gonna die. And obviously, as a fan of the Christopher Reeve movies, I'm like, I want to read that. Like, give me that goodness. And so because of the door being open, my mom was super into me saying that I wanted to read anything. She was all about it. um, I got introduced in a funny sort of way to family members that I've known my entire life, but suddenly finding out that they had an artistic background, and not only an artistic background but an interest in comics. But because we're from Columbus, Ohio, that's not where comics were made in the 60s,
Right.
70s. You had to be in New York. So all of a sudden I'm like opened up to this whole concept of comics, making comics, everything. And it guided me from, I would say, like fourth, fifth grade all the way into like through high school. um and so like I went to Columbus College of Art and Design. Big shout out to them. I'm a happy dropout, because I went there my freshman year, and I realized I was like, you know what, drawing has been my guidance this entire time, and I don't love it anymore. But I love telling stories. And so it was constantly in my heart that I was going to tell stories some kind of way in comics. And a big part of that is one of my uncles who, again, I learned, could draw and things like that. He was a victim of violent crime when I was younger. And I kind of dedicated that I was going to do something in the comic book medium in honor of him. And after so long, you get to a point where you have seen some things. I had written for some other small press imprints. Big shout out to Freestyle Comics, my buddy Mike Watson. And I realized that there was so much more that I could do, that I wanted to kind of take the reins and do it myself. And so in 2010, I launched Vantage In-House Productions, where I left a cushy state job. I worked for the state of Ohio, and I quit that job to start making comics full time. And it was the fulfillment of a vow that I had made when I was a kid, and it has driven me to unimaginable successes since. It's been insane the way that this has kind of gone. And we launched with our very first book, a series called The Samaritan, which actually will celebrate 15 years in publication next month in March.
Nice.
Thank you, thank
Congratulations.
you. Appreciate that.
That's awesome. What was the first comic book? I know you mentioned the death of Superman, which was,
Hmm.
shook the entire foundation of
Everywhere.
comics at the time,
Hmm.
and really set up Doomsday in a big bad way. Um, I want to know though, what was like the first comic that like showed you that like these stories can talk about like real real struggles of the people
Oh
that you see
wow.
every day. You know what I mean? Like the people that look
Yeah.
like you, that you live around. Like what was that one comic where you're like, oh, I can tell stories like about me, about my uncle, about what we really go through.
It's wild. Like, to understand that, right, takes a sort of maturity in my readership.
Hmm.
Obviously, early 90s, I'm reading X-Men because everybody was reading X-Men. And yes, X-Men is a great
Yeah.
allegory for those people that are marginalized, but at the same time, you don't really think about your ability to tell stories in that way. It wasn't until I got older and I read the book Mouse, which is a little bit more of an alternative comic, but Art Spiegel, like, talking about his father's experience in Nazi Germany, going through a concentration camp and surviving. That was when I understood how you can use this beautiful medium to say things that are personal, that are delicate, that are nuanced, that are interesting. And it's not just about superheroes and fights and tights. And that's the one that did it for me.
That's really cool. Yeah. That is a big one for a lot of people. And it really shows you just how powerful comics can be when it's not always in the fantastical world or the
Hmm.
things that seem so far out of reach, that there is the allegories, but it's not so much like I don't have ice powers. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's like, but then again, my family from Poland, that I can see that. I can see
Hmm.
how they had to be forced out of their home, and how that relates to Mouse. And it was so fascinating to come up on something that was like anyone could pick that up and
Hmm.
relate to it, because it's so like of that time, but of
Hmm.
our time and the struggle that we go through as like an oppressed community. And it was such a
Yes.
beautiful thing to see. I want to talk a little bit about You Create Comics. What
Okay.
is You Create Comics? How did you come up with this? And what does that look like today?
So it was a twofold venture. Early in my career, I had encountered a company, and I will be kind to not name them, but they had this process where the goal was to create comics for kids, right? To use information that they supplied and hire some semi-pro creatives, some writers, some artists, and we would produce a comic for the kid. And I remember thinking, like, you are taking the greatest part of this process away from the kid. Like, for the kid to create something is really the goal. To have something is cool, but for them to create it, for them to feel empowered in that way, really should be the point. And I disagreed with the direction of that company, so I left the company and kind of had that in the back of my head for the longest time of giving some empowerment back to kids creatively so that they can understand what it's like to wield a voice, tell a story, things like that. Taking into account my own experience, how comics changed my standing as a student. I wasn't a kid who had difficulties reading. I just didn't enjoy the content. And so recognizing that and kind of putting those two things together, I go, okay, well, there's literary value, there's educational value, and then there's personal empowerment that's all involved with this concept. So almost like at the same time, simultaneously, I launched Vantage in-house Productions and You Create Comics. So I wanted to create my own comic series for people to read and enjoy, but at the same time, build a foundation of workshops and products that showed you how to make your own comics. Because I think, in a very real way, this is part of our mission statement: kids who make comics read comics, and kids who read comics can read anything. And so, if the goal is to build the next generation of readers, how do I do that? I have to not only showcase why comics are valuable as literature, but I'm going to showcase what it does for you as an individual, your ability to communicate, your ability to collaborate, to think creatively. And so, like, recognizing that kind of pathway, I created both of those imprints at the same time and took that into schools and built a wonderful, wonderful experience of helping kids create their own stories, come up with their own comic characters. Who knows? I think some of the kids that I've talked to over the last 15 years, we might have the next like Ninja Turtles in the making, somewhere in there. The next Superman is in there. The next Spider-Man is in there.
That's really cool. Yeah, it's crazy because when you're a kid, you always think like, well, not me.
Right.
I love that, but I can't do that, right? And I
Hmm.
remember in like man, it must have been like third grade, we got to make our own books, do like the binding of the book, like it was
Absolutely.
so cool. And in my mind, I was like, and then Harry Potter came out like right around that time. I'm like, she stole my story. That was my story, like in my mind, I'm like,
Right.
what the
Right.
heck? This J.K. Rowling took my show. No, but yeah, it's just crazy when you're a kid. It's like you always have this like mentality, like, well, not me, not
Right.
me, and
Right.
You Create makes it seem like, well, why not me? I can't like
Exactly.
I and that is the beautiful part about that, and that's what
Thank you.
really spoke to me when I was doing my research about it. And it's such a cool thing, and it's needed, especially for kids today, because with technology and stuff like that,
Yes.
they know so much because it's all there, it's all at their fingertips. And so why not empower them to give them that push to create and to be those next storytellers? And that's such a
Yes.
beautiful thing, to empower the kids to
Hmm.
have that we didn't really have when we were growing up in the 80s and 90s.
Right. I think
Um,
that's super important, like you said, as a platform for the future, because telling stories is such an integral part of us as a society. No matter how you look at it, on a political level, on a social level, telling stories is everything. And so, investing in that, I think, is one of the greatest things that we can do as a civilization today.
yeah, no, I totally agree. I totally agree. And that's a really beautiful thing. And man, I don't know. I just always go back to Mr. Rogers. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Where it's this mentality of like not talking down to children, but treating them
Hmm.
as human beings. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And human beings have the power to imagine, to create, and you can do that when you're 10 years old. And
1,000,000%.
so it's a really beautiful thing to see. Um we got a question already.
Oh, let's
Let's
go.
let's let's take a look at it. We got 1130 YT. They're asking, they said it's a little bit off topic, but
Okay.
we got a question in here. I feel like why not just answer it? So they say maybe off topic, but curious about Doomsday IMAX, right? Dune 3 versus Doomsday thing. And we
Hmm.
talked about this on the show a couple weeks ago when it was reported that at least for the first 3 weeks, Dune 3 is going to own the IMAX theaters.
Mm.
And they were asking, what do you think IMAX exclusivity would be applied in India too? And then they were saying generally theaters just show whatever they want in IMAX in India. So to
Interesting.
be to be honest, I'm not really sure how the contracts work worldwide
Hmm.
with IMAX. I know that these things are locked in years, months, in advance, which is why when the dates shifted for Doomsday, because originally it was going to be the summer and then it got
Right.
pushed to December, they were already like, well, we already have our contract signed, sealed, and delivered with Dune 3. So they are going to own the IMAX theaters for at least the first 3 weeks. So
Hmm.
I don't know how that works worldwide. I would assume that contracts exist whatever country you're in, but then 1130 is saying generally theaters just show whatever they want in IMAX in India. Do you have any insight on that, or any idea or any
For
instincts?
India specifically, I can't speak on that. But what I can
Yeah.
say is that I do a show called Into the Chatterverse. One of my buddies, Bill, he works for a movie theater company, and so we have a lot of
Okay.
conversations about how theater, dynamics work within these kind of frames. So you're absolutely right. When the plan was to move Doomsday to December, it was understood that they were going to go up against some things that were already locked in, right? I
Right.
think what's interesting is the impact of certain foreign markets. Right
Hmm.
now, you have the US market, which is like a very strong place, but the worldwide market is very strong, but that's very specifically in China because of the
100%.
numbers that they have. How big of a percentage India fits into that? I'm very curious because India has a huge population, but I don't
Yeah.
know in terms of finance how much how much value in terms of a box office intake does that actually account for? If the idea is that in India that they'll just show anything, it's possible that the value of the Indian dollar in box office is very loose. And so there's a lot more need to spread things out and let whatever can bring in money.
Right.
Um, and I think that's a very interesting concept because honestly, I think that could be a framework moving forward that might actually impact the Netflix stuff that we'll talk about later. So I think there's
Very good
there's
point.
something very interesting to that. Are you a Dune fan though?
Yeah. Oh
Okay,
yeah. Are you not?
okay,
You're not?
no, no, no.
Oh, okay.
I
I mean,
listen when
not
I,
even
you
Dune
know me and my
2.
hot takes. But
Yeah.
Dune 2 was interesting, but to have to get through Dune 1 to get to it, no. No.
I mean, but if they had your boy Cesar Romero with the
Now
mustache,
listen, you put Caesar in anything, I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
yeah, I don't know. I just think it's a blessed time for nerds, all across the
Absolutely.
board.
A million percent
Like
that.
1130 is saying, like, man, a back-to-back Dune 3 versus Doomsday in IMAX, just in the theater for 7 hours. I'm in there for sure.
Listen, I might not be a Dune fan, but I would sign up for that. I would be there for that. Yes.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing for nerds across the board, regardless of what you think. There is a lot of people out there that are going to be very excited for this double feature, and it's good for the theaters. And again, we're going to talk about the theaters in a little bit. Before we get into our topics, I mean, we got a bunch of topics. We should just jump into them. I just wanted to ask you, because I know we went off track for a second. What was your favorite superheroes growing up? What was like your top 3, Yeah.
Ooh, okay, so top 3. From the X-Men, I was a Gambit guy.
Okay.
That was like Gambit was the charm, the suave, all of that. Like I took French in high school because of Gambit. Like he was my guy. Early on, Captain Marvel Shazam was also a favorite of mine. Do you have a Gambit?
This is from when I was a kid. This is from when I was a kid.
I love it.
This is from like when I was a little kid. Found these in my parents' garage.
Yes.
My Juggernaut has one arm, and then
that's awesome. That's a well-loved Juggernaut.
With these ones, I got Gambit, Bishop. I loved Bishop.
Nice.
Juggernaut and Cyclops.
Okay.
These little die-cast, 90s X-Men, not 97,
Classics.
but the X-Men animated series was just, it took the world by storm, at least for us kids. Yeah.
So good. So good. I'm so privileged to have gotten to meet the guys behind it. So Larry Houston, who was the show director, storyboard artist, the Lee Walds, Eric and Julia, who were the showrunners, the writers, getting to meet them has been like one of the joys of my career because they were so influential to me as a person.
Have you met any of the voices?
Absolutely.
Well? Yeah.
I've met everybody pretty much. The only person I don't think that I have actually met was the original voice of Cyclops. He's unfortunately passed on, but yeah, I definitely have met him. But like Cal Dodd, who's the voice of Wolverine. Chris, who did the voice of Gambit. AJ, who's the voice of Gambit now. It's Allison.
Really good, by the way.
First. He is so good.
Good. AJ did a fantastic job. It really didn't skip a beat. That they seem like really like kind people, and they seem like a family, like what they went through together, it getting canceled, which is ridiculous. That thing should have went like 12 seasons.
Right?
They really seem like a family, and they love being around each other and doing these conventions together. It's a really beautiful thing. That's really cool.
Very, very much.
All right, who else you got before we move on?
So Captain Marvel Shazam was one of my favorites growing up as well. Those Superman is who got me into comics. I loved, there was something about the magic of Billy Batson that I really appreciated. And I kind of like I don't want to call him an underdog, but kind of the idea of you have to think outside of the box to really understand how powerful he actually is. So like in the scale of things, it might seem like Superman could lift more than him. But because he's magic-based, he should automatically be able to beat Superman anytime he wants to, because Superman has a vulnerability to magic. You have to think about it, and there's storytelling built in. So I always loved him as well. Wonder Woman is actually now my favorite DC Comics character. But overall, my favorite character of all time that I did not create would be Black Bolt, King of the Inhumans.
Yeah, very underrated too.
Very.
For the uninitiated, they gotta bring him back, because that Doctor Strange little cameo was fantastic, but it wasn't enough. Not enough.
Yeah. And I got to moderate for Anson Mount, and I told him, I was like, yeah, Black Bolt is my favorite, and he's like, is he really your favorite? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, what's his real name? And I'm like, Blackagar Boltagon. And he's like, Oh, hold on. Okay.
Don't try and check Victor. This is the hardest working man in comics, bro.
Listen, Anson, he didn't know. He didn't know. But once I said that, and as quickly as I said it, he was like, oh, let's talk. He's like, because you actually know this character. I was like, oh yeah, King Poltagon is my guy. Like come on, let's lock in. So yeah, Black Bolt is my favorite. And that's big shout out to my dad, Victor Sr. He's who put me on to Black Bolt, and I've been a fan since.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Shout out dad. That's awesome.
Yes,
I
yes.
love when it's passed down like that. I don't even know how I got into comics because yeah, I don't even know. Honestly. My
Oh
dad,
man, you got to chase back
yeah,
your origin story.
I don't know. It just kind of happened, I think. I think it's those cartoons, like a lot of kids in the early 90s, late 80s,
Hmm.
those and Fox Saturday morning cartoons and the Batman animated series. I think
Yes,
those really get
yes.
like those really help, and that's really what Stan Lee was trying to do way early on in the 70s and
Hmm.
was like in 60s, with the Fantastic Four animated was
Hmm.
really like how like movies aren't there yet, but animation is. Let's get it to
Yes.
them this way, and it
Hmm.
worked for a lot of people. All right, we
Absolutely.
got so much
All
to
right,
get
let's go.
into. Let's get into it. Thank you so much for explaining that stuff though
Of
and
course.
breaking it down. You guys, please check out Vantage In-House Productions, especially The Samaritan, Origins Unknown, The Trouble with Love. There's so many good ones, and you create comics. It's really really beautiful educational
Thank you.
initiative. So let's jump into it. With that down,
Okay.
I wanted to get into this. With the Predator franchise, it's had a rocky road to say the
Yes.
least. We had,
Hmm.
the Arnold amazing 80s movie put Predator on the map in a big bad way. And it's gone through a lot of iterations, Alien vs Predator,
Right.
Requiem and things like that, and it took a while for Predator to be taken seriously again as
Hmm.
a franchise that people really want to see. And the man to make that happen was Dan Trachtenberg.
Hmm.
And Trachtenberg
The
is this mic
Trachtenberg.
on?
Yeah.
No, and so you know, Dan really set the tone for how these stories can be interpreted today. And he did that with
Hmm.
Prey, which went straight to Hulu, but was
Hmm.
honestly one of the best straight to Hulu movies that we've seen in recent years.
Period.
And then he did that with Predator Badlands in the theaters,
Hmm.
which for the people that saw it blew us away because it was really the first time that the Predator was the protagonist, that he was the leading person, and it was an incredible achievement of what you can do with this franchise. And then, not to mention the animated Predator
Kill of
Killers
Killers.
of Killers, which was more of an
Yes.
anthology, which included maybe some past people from Predator movies that we love and have seen before. And so he really started building out this Predator world that he was fully owning. And it was so beautiful
Hmm.
to see. And we were like, well, what is he going to do next? Well, unfortunately, it seems like it might not be Predator because it is now being reported, and this comes to us from comicbookmovie.com. They say, after spending
Hmm.
the last few years reviving and steering the Predator franchise at Disney 20th Century Studios, Dan Trachtenberg, sorry if I'm butchering that, has jumped ship to Paramount Pictures. THR reports that the filmmaker has signed a 3-year first look directing and producing deal with the studio to develop, direct, and produce future projects with his upcoming producing partner, Ben Rosenblatt. Trachtenberg actually began his career at Paramount, where he helmed his 2016 very underrated feature debut, 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Hmm.
Trachtenberg said in a statement, and let's share this bad boy so we can look at it together.
Beautiful.
Let me see. And man, I love 10 Cloverfield Lane. That
It
is
was
just
such a
such
good
an
one. Such a
underrated,
good
and it
movie. Yes.
really is John Goodman's Misery for
Hmm.
me. I thought he was just brilliant in that. So after the deal for Paramount was signed, sealed, and delivered, Trachtenberg said, as a kid, I remember seeing the Paramount logo and dreaming of the epic adventure that would follow. He says, now to have the opportunity to bring new, huge, and emotional stories to giant screens is literally a dream come true. Ben and I cannot wait to join Dana, Josh, Don, and the entire Paramount team in pursuing our shared vision of making Paramount once again the apex of cinema. And Greenstein and Goldberg from Paramount said, Dan has an extraordinary ability to deliver films that are both daring and deeply entertaining. He has a rare instinct for tension, scale, and storytelling that connects with audiences worldwide. We're excited to welcome him to the studio. So, Vic, I want to ask you, can I call you Vic, by the way?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I want to ask you, one, huge congratulations to Dan, one of the young creators that is really crushing it with some big IP. I wanted to ask you, though, what do you think this means for the Predator saga that he's been creating the past few years? And now that he's part of the Paramount family, is there any projects that you would like to see Dan take on that you think he would be really good in revitalizing this IP?
Absolutely. What I think it ultimately means is that there is a limit to whatever we're going to get from this new Predator renaissance. He did a phenomenal job revitalizing, reframing what the Predator franchise could be. Prey definitely hit a lick when it took us back through time and gave us different iterations of what it was like for the UA to show up and do things throughout our history. Absolutely brilliant. Love that. He set a framework that can pass on beyond him. I think that there will be other Predator movies. The question will then be, okay, you see the bar, can you match it? If you can't match it, it's gonna fall on your ears, but that's gonna be your challenge. The place where I think he'll go first in this new framework, though, is possibly tapping a popular, common Paramount property, but coming at it from a different way.
Does it start with a T?
I gotta say it.
Does it
It
start
does
with a
not start
T?
with a T. No,
Okay.
no.
Not
I think
Transformers. Okay.
not Transformers. No, I think he will get his claws into Star Trek, but from a
Let's
different point of
go.
view. So let's go let's go Star Trek universe, but the Federation is not the point. What are the other alien societies, entities like? What happens if the Romulans meet the Borg without the Federation's interference? If they've not, involved themselves, do they have any sort of interactions, and what does that look like? I think that's the thing that he's going to give us is he's going to take some of these things that we've known from one perspective and show us what it looks like from the other side.
I love that. I really love that. And, when I look at the box office of Predator Badlands, so this bad boy was made for 105 million and in gross worldwide 185 almost.
Wow,
so
that's such an underrated
and
return.
it's really not a great return for a really good movie that he made. And it's really unfortunate, but unfortunately, studios speak numbers and numbers influence if they're going to continue with these kind of movies. And maybe this was a signal to him that he needs to sign a deal while he's hot. And right now, Paramount was just purchased by the Ellisons, and they're looking to snatch up talent. They already did it with Timothy Chalamet and the director from Logan. I'm blanking on the name.
Mangold.
Yes, thank you. So
James,
they're already snatching up some hot commodities, right? And Dan is another one right now to really build out their sci-fi and fantasy slate that they have. And so I think it's a really smart move, but it's really unfortunate because these Predator movies that he made with Predator Badlands, Prey, and Killers of Killers were arguably the best Predator movies that we've seen thus far. And so I really wanted to see where he was going with this next. But of course, box office determines if you're going there. Now, with Paramount, this is a great opportunity because there is some untapped IP that can really use a revitalization, if you will. And so, of course, people's minds go to Transformers, but as we know, Michael Bay might be coming back. They're looking at maybe Shia coming back. There's a lot of stuff going on that we're not privy to. So it seems like that might be covered. Another possibility is the Cloverfield franchise, which kind of fell flat on his face when it was being pigeonholed into other scripts that had nothing to do with Cloverfield, and they made it a Cloverfield movie and it just didn't work out. And so there is an opportunity for Dan to come back and continue the path that he made with 10 Cloverfield Lane and continue to build that out. And so there's some potential there. What I am also hearing, and Jeff Schneider, the insider, the Snyder, if you will, was saying that this is a possibility. And I want to know what you think about this.
Okay.
There has been rumblings of a sequel or a one-off of World War Z, the movie starring Brad Pitt, which was very underrated and fantastic. And so Jeff Schneider had this to say about this IP. He said, but the piece of IP that I most suspect Paramount wants Trachtenberg to tackle is World War Z, as he'd be a perfect fit for that sequel / reboot, depending on how the studio wants to play it. I don't know if Brad Pitt is a fan of the Predator franchise, but strictly as a producer of exceptional taste, he has to appreciate what Trachtenberg and Rosenblatt have done with the IP alongside Steve Asbell at 20th Century Studios. Would you like to see Dan taking on the World War Z universe? And do you think that his talents would lend well to this IP that's really been untapped since the first movie came out?
True. World War Z as a book had a lot more range to it than what the movie got to tap into.
Yeah.
But, and I'm a huge zombie fan. I love zombies as a narrative genre, storytelling device. I love them.
Yeah. And a song. Zombie.
Right?
Zombie.
Such a good song. I don't know that I love the idea of Dan immersing himself into that. I feel like it is oddly limited in a very real sort of way. It is not the Paramount Picture franchise that I would actually really want him to take over. And though I threw out, Star Trek initially, that's not even the one that I would love for him to really take. The one that I would love for him to take, which is due for a reboot, definitely needs a refresh in terms of its execution and concept, would be Mission Impossible. If we had him take on the Mission Impossible franchise, removed from Tom Cruise, right? Tom is done. Tom has done it, right? Like, what does that look like now? As IMF has moved forward in a different direction. Do we get something a little different? And I think that has enough versatility in it for Dan to really showcase some things that would just blow our minds. But can I see? I mean, that's the thing about Dan, though. Dan is such a great storyteller. I could think that World War Z would be limiting, and he would show me like, no, you just don't even know how I'm going to approach it, and that's the brilliance of him. So if that is what the direction is, I'm for it. But I definitely would really like to see something that already has enough fertile ground in the obvious sense that him being added to it just is that much more exciting.
Yeah, no, I love where your mind's going, because it just shows how much IP Paramount has that is ready to get a new iteration. And unfortunately, I don't think we're far enough from the last Mission Impossible movie. This bad boy was made for 400 million and it made barely 600. It's another one of those, the budget will influence if they're going to make more. And so I think they might want some more breathing room, but I would love to see Dan take on any of the IP that we made, because he thinks about things like we don't. And that's what makes him truly special. So let us know what you guys think. Do you think that because of this deal that maybe his time with the Predator franchise is done, and now that he's at Paramount, do you want him to see him take on a Mission Impossible or a Transformers or a Saving Miss Daisy. No, I don't know. Anything that Paramount has. Let us know your thoughts. Drop a comment below. All right, guys. With that down, I wanted to get into this. So we are hot on the heels of a bunch of teasers for Doomsday. And so this is the year of Doomsday, right? We're a year away, or some less than, some change less than, but we are getting close, and people are dying to know what's going on with Doomsday, and subsequently, what is gonna be Secret Wars? What is that gonna look like? Because we don't know really what Doomsday is, and there's a lot of secrecy about these two movies, which there should be. However, last week or 2 weeks ago, we heard some rumblings that Secret Wars could be split into two movies. And it was just a rumor. And this past week, we got some reports that this could indeed be what is going to happen with Secret Wars. And so this comes to us from Superhero Hype via yahoo.com. They say a new rumor suggests that Avengers Secret Wars could be split into two parts. Avengers Secret Wars is the forthcoming sequel to Avengers Doomsday. Currently in Doomsday is in post-production and is dated for a December 2026 release date, while Secret Wars is expected to begin filming later this year and will arrive in 2027. Both films being directed by Joe and Anthony Russo. But we are now hearing rumors that this two-parter for Secret Wars might be coming to fruition in a big bad way. This comes to us from scooper Alex Perez of the Cosmic Circus, who was recently asked if there's any chance that Avengers Secret Wars could be split into two parts. And this is what he said. Let's take a look. Let's look at it together. So Alex Perez of the Cosmic Circus said, the current rumor running around is that Secret Wars is going to be split into two parts. Perez said, I'd like to pile on that to that rumor and say that there's a very high chance that they could. And the reason why is that, that over the last few days, the team here at the Cosmic Circus has been monitoring updates for developments on multiple Marvel projects and have discovered that Avengers Secret Wars, which was originally approved to start in the coming months, has now ground into what is known as a conditional start phase. Essentially, it means that Marvel cannot legally film anything for Secret Wars until a new verification of the contract is achieved. In the few instances that this has happened, it's because there has been a massive shift from what the production was originally looking like. For example, like one film now being split into two parts. There's been no announcement from Marvel Studios, so this is all speculation about Secret Wars being split into two parts, meaning that this is just rumor time. It is worth noting that scooper Daniel Rickman recently reported on the matter too, saying that Doomsday's box office numbers would ultimately determine Secret Wars getting split into two. However, when you're supposed to be filming it this year, it doesn't really make sense that they're going to wait and see approach it. But it makes more sense from Alex Perez about these contracts and not legally being because there's been a massive shift in production. And so that was the new report that came out this past week that is making it seem more likely that we are going to see a split with Secret Wars. Vic, I want to ask you, based on the new information coming out from Cosmic Circus, what do you think the chances are now that Secret Wars is going to be split into two? And do you think that this is the right move at this point to split it into two parts?
That's a big question. I like the concept of it being split into two because what I think it being split into two does is, one, it gives us more time for story. This is a huge, impactful, very iconic story in comics, no matter which one you're talking about, whether it's the original Secret Wars 2, or the 2015 no matter
Can't get
which
away.
one you're talking about, it is super impactful. And you need that space to do it. However, I'm going to go as far as to say that this, in my opinion, could be the end of the MCU as we know it. And that deserves a more stretched out, decompressed opportunity to wrap up everything. Um, I was a big fan of the MCU as a whole for a very long time throughout the Infinity Saga. I personally believe that they should have stopped after the Infinity Saga. They should have put the mic down and been like, no one is going to do what we just did. They didn't do that. They kept
Yeah,
going.
I remember you said
And
that. Yep.
it's like, I mean, it's such a huge opportunity to stay on top, right? Like you're at a point now where the only thing that really challenges you is you, and they've not been able to meet that success, which arguably is why they're bringing, all these assets back. Robert Downey Jr., the Russo brothers, like bringing them back is kind of a
Cap.
necessity, right? Exactly. Like you've got to tap into what did work because you realize that what you've got is not working. And generally speaking, I would say it is more than likely the inclusion of Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans, which is the reason why this has to go into a new negotiation tactic. Because I know Robert had a deal where he was getting a cut of the box office gross, so that's definitely
Oh
going to
yeah.
have to be factored in. And I want to say that was part of the deal to bring Chris back. Chris wasn't really interested in coming back as Captain America. He had put it to bed. He was done. So for him to do so, they had to sweeten that deal something nicely and possibly give him something akin to what Robert Downey Jr. was getting. And so, with those two guys, especially, the need to or the idea of stretching this into two movies, you got to renegotiate, make sure that they're good to go with it. And I think that's a huge opportunity for storytelling for sure. But they've got to land it correctly, where the idea is that when they end this, whatever comes next can be a fruitful reboot and not
Mhm.
necessarily include all of the actors that had came before.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think Secret Wars is such a big story to adapt. And of
Hmm.
course, we know in the MCU they like to take their what is it? They like to bend and twist the stories to fit the
Hmm.
MCU based on the comics, but within the
Right.
parameters of what they set forth in the past few years with their movies building up to these big
Right.
moments. And so it is a big story to adapt. And also,
Hmm.
let's not forget, just a few years ago, we were going into a different story with King. And so
Hmm.
when they had to go back to the drawing board and kind of put Doctor Doom in that big bad position and take King out of it, it had to reset the entire structure of the storytelling to get to Secret Wars in a big
Right.
bad way. And so
Hmm.
now we're seeing the ramifications of that. And that means having to think on your toes, having to, I don't know about seeing if the box office is good to determine if it's going to be two, but
Right.
definitely
Right.
having to see if we have enough runway in Doomsday to truly finish off the story in Secret Wars. And now that they have had to change the story to fit in Doom, it seems like there isn't enough runway to tell the entire ending of the story in Secret Wars. And the best part is let's split it in two so we can really give this story the love and the care that it deserves. And to your point, send off all the characters that they set before in a really satisfying way for the fans, because
Hmm.
it seems after Secret Wars, we are going to be in a very different MCU moving forward.
Very.
And that means people need to get excited for that. And that means that this conclusion needs to be satisfying, but also
Hmm.
get you excited for what this means for the next 10 years in the MCU moving forward. And so
Yes.
it has a lot of work to do with not a lot of time. And two movies make sense to give them that time, to
Yes.
give them
Yes.
that proper send off.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's one of the things that unfortunately has kind of escape the MCU currently, Marvel Studios did something very brilliant. 2014, when they did the big announcement at the El Capitan Theater, when they said, okay, you've seen these movies come out and it's been piecemeal up until this point. We're going to tell you right now, we have a bigger plan and we're going to extend out over the next 5 years the movies that we're going to release. It was not based on box office returns at that point. They were already projecting, we're going to do this one way or the other. It doesn't really matter whether or not the movies are successful because we're banking on them all being successful. And now that they've had a taste of that not necessarily being as true as it used to be, for them to kind of be a little bit more conservative and contract a little bit in terms of their production does put some things into a very sticky state for me as a storyteller. The idea that Doom as a character has not actually been introduced, and yet he is supposed to be the big bad of this new setup. That's a very hard sell if you think in conjunction or comparison to what Thanos was. Thanos was presented at the end of Avengers 1, right? Silent, turnaround smile. If you know, you know. If you don't, you got time to find out. And it became a big thing. We're talking from 2012 through 2018 when he really makes his big showcase in Infinity War. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of time, and we have not gotten that amount of time with Doom. He literally first premieres just last summer in the end credits of Fantastic Four, and we still don't even actually see him. So this is one of those attempts that, from a movie making standpoint, is such a huge gamble that I can see them needing to extend this out just so they can try to, for lack of a better word, milk as much money as they can, because this is going to require a lot of fan buy-in for a character that may not be as obvious or interesting to everybody.
I think 1130 brings up a good point. They say, they sure should do the 2-part of Secret Wars, which I think we both agree. But what do you think about this? They say with some connecting movies in between, similar to pre-Infinity War, do you think it is a wise idea in between the 2 parts to have another movie? Or do you think that time and separation will build anticipation because they're waiting for what happens next? And a movie in the middle might not really be the way to keep the audience on edge waiting for the next movie. With Captain Marvel, we saw that it got huge numbers, but the movie itself was not received well because it really didn't have anything to do with what was going to happen in Endgame or any of those bigger movies. And so I'm wondering, do you think it'd be wise if they do split into 2 parts to have a connecting kind of movie in between?
So to that point, and I think it's an interesting one, I do want to give you a subtle pushback. Not that I disagree, because you're absolutely right. Captain Marvel did not necessarily have the critical acclaim or the seeming connection to the Ultimate Infinity Saga, but neither did Black Panther. And Black Panther, on a domestic level, made more money than Infinity War did, and culturally speaking, was a huge impact despite its lack of presentation. If you take Black Panther out of the Infinity Saga, nothing changes. So there's nothing inherent to the story within that first Black Panther movie that actually the closest thing to it is the understanding and showcase that Bucky is in Wakanda at the end. That's it. And you don't necessarily even need that.
Takes place in Wakanda. But the best rule of thumb, though, if you have Chadwick in your movie, it's going to be a good movie.
It's going to be amazing. Absolutely.
Miss you, buddy.
Million percent. Here's okay. I'm gonna. Hopefully, I am going to break the internet with what I'm getting ready to tell you.
Let's get it.
I think, yes, a movie in between could be cool. What will be even better is for you to find out that all of the phases since Endgame happen in between the 2 movies. Secret Wars is going to showcase that this is something that has happened, and everything that we've seen is actually in between that first Secret Wars and this one and the last one. So this whole multiversal saga, that will recontextualize what it is, that all the things that we've seen from Shang-Chi, Eternals, all of those
Spider-Man?
things,
No Way Home,
all of them actually happen within the 2 end caps of Secret Wars. that would be a huge opportunity, because what it then does is it recontextualizes the entire saga that people have ultimately have felt failed. People have not felt like it was as strong, and it's in the release order that we've gotten it. We just it's fallen off, it's fallen off. But if you say, okay, so Secret Wars, the way we're telling Secret Wars, we're telling this first part, and the way it ends, you realize picks up like at the beginning of what the multiverse saga was, and now you have to rewatch everything and go, oh my
Right.
god, it actually all plays out. And then you get the second follow-up for the end cap, and you see all of it actually fits together, that all of Battle World were all these other movies that were inside of it. That would be a huge opportunity.
That's insane. Oh my goodness. I mean, it's just such a ballsy move. I think I would love it.
Right,
I would love it. So that means Doomsday pretty much just takes place right after Endgame, right?
right,
And then that scene with Captain America that they tease where he stays
Mhm.
back picks up right after Endgame,
Million
and then
percent.
that goes into Doomsday right there.
Mhm.
And then whatever happens in Doomsday causes all those movies from the last phase to happen to get to Secret Wars like that.
No, so what
Or
happens
it
in
happens, or
Doomsday in
Secret Wars
my
happens.
head?
Okay, yeah.
Yes, Doomsday shows us. Doomsday actually will become the lead into Secret Wars Part 2. So when we get to Secret Wars,
Ah,
we actually realize that we're going backwards, and we're telling all these things that led to what ultimately happened in Doomsday. And then
mhm.
Doomsday is the one that ends at a point where you go, wait, what? And that's what Secret Wars 2 picks up.
That's crazy. Okay.
Yes,
That's
yes,
wild.
yes.
That's so wild. It just might work. So,
I mean, listen,
yeah.
if they're smart, you do it that way. You re-release all the other movies. You make a ton of more money off of each of those releases, which adds to their box office impact. And then you've crescendoed right back into that Secret Wars Part 2, which, I mean, again, Endgame didn't make as much money as it could have in that regard. This is a huge way for them to put that right back in that scale of MCU does tip top. Like, you can't beat them.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that I would love to just see the machinations of how that would work. That would be
Be
wild. And
insane,
how
insane.
audiences would take that in, because audience confusion is very real. And so this would have to be a very delicate balance of how you go about that.
Right?
But Marcus and McFeely, or I guess McFeely is the only one writing these ones.
Okay.
They're the best writers in the in the MCU. So
I
if somebody can
mean,
do it, it's for
it's
sure
gonna be
them.
them.
But yeah, so that would be incredible. Okay, well, let us know what you guys think. Do you think Vic is right? And all the
I
last
hope so.
phases have been between the two movies? And also, do you think that Cosmic Circus is right about this conditional start phase, and essentially meaning that Marvel cannot legally film anything for Secret Wars because there's a new verification of the contract, and that's why this is causing some delays with starting Secret Wars, because it's
Mhm.
going to be two movies. So drop a comment below and let us know your guys' thoughts.
Like that.
All right, guys, with that down, I wanted to get into this. So the saga of the Netflix Warner Brothers merger continues, and
Mhm.
it has culminated in the standard process of the Senate hearing, where
Mhm.
Netflix goes to the Senate and the Senate checks them on why they're purchasing this, what their plans are, what's this going to do to theaters. And it's the whole process that one goes through with a big merger, similar to Disney purchasing Fox and the Paramount merger with Skydance. This is the standard process that happens.
Mhm.
But within this process and the Senate hearing, to be exact, we have finally heard from theater owners. And we heard from them in a big bad way. This comes to us from
Mhm.
Deadline. They say Cinema United, the trade organization for exhibition, has made public its remarks about the pending Netflix Warner Brothers merger to the Senate Antitrust Subcommittee, saying if Netflix succeeds in acquiring Warner Brothers, the results will be economically and culturally catastrophic. Fewer theaters, shorter windows, less revenue, fewer jobs across the national and global entertainment industry, and fewer movies for consumers to see in theaters. Cinema United, previously known as National Association of Theater Owners, submitted a 6-page written testimony to the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee on Antitrust, Competition and Policy and Consumer Rights on Tuesday. While Netflix co-CEO Ted Sarandos told lawmakers on the record the streamer is about a 45-day exclusive theatrical window for movies, many rival studio sources have questioned the streaming boss's intent. If Sarandos is thinking a 45-day window to streaming, that's still rather destructive to the business. When distributors talk about a 45-day window, they mean 45 days until PVOD or sell through digital, a window that precedes the streaming window. Streaming windows generally are around 90 to 100 days or more after a movie bows in cinemas. In the statement, Cinema United advocated, "We are deeply concerned that this acquisition of Warner Brothers by Netflix will have a direct and irreversible negative impact on movie theaters around the world. Such an acquisition will further consolidate control over production and distribution of motion pictures in the hands of a single dominant global streaming platform in a market that is already highly concentrated. The impact will not only be felt by theater owners, but by movie fans and surrounding businesses in communities of all sizes." I want to ask you, based on what the Movie Theaters Association is saying, or as they put it now, Cinema United.
That's right.
What do you think of their comments to the Senate? Do you think that it's true? We also reported that Ted Sarandos has said that they are committed to a 45-day window, that they bought Warner Brothers because they were not in the movie distribution business. They did not have a billion-dollar proven distribution track to have their movies be distributed in the movie theaters. And that is why they bought Warner Brothers, is because now they are in the theater going business. Two things can be true at the same time, but
Absolutely.
Based on the comments from Cinema United, do you think that they're right in that this will be detrimental and catastrophic to how we will see movies in theaters moving forward?
So big shout out to Cinema United. I actually went to CinemaCon last year for the first time and really appreciated the experience that I had out there. I do understand their plight. The model currently embodied by Netflix can be considered very detrimental to what the theater process has been. The issue that I have with it, the yes and part, is that what I don't think that anyone is taking into account is the actual innovations that are built into how Netflix has progressed. The innovative factor is such a huge overlook that it's easy to say, well, right now you're part of this structure that has impacted us on a negative, and we don't think that you're actually going to build back into us. I say Netflix, by way of doing this, is reinvesting into the scope and scale of what going to the movies actually looks like, what it means, and how it works in a way that we have not seen in a very long time. I think that under the aspect of Warner Brothers, and I think this is part of the issue here, is that people are looking at how this will work based on strictly the way things look right now, not what they could look like with the right innovative pieces in play. If we say Warner Brothers, how many studios does that actually account for? Obviously, Warner Brothers is the big umbrella, but that could be things like New Line. I have no idea what all the other like sub companies under Warner Brothers that could come out from this could be. And I think one of the big interesting pieces is if the distribution lanes for all of these things are wide open, if they're mutually integrated between theaters as well as streaming, there's more opportunity for people to make movies. And that's kind of where we are right now. As the problem is, we have major movie studios selectively releasing content because it has to reach a certain amount of money overall, or else we don't have follow-ups, we don't have continuations, we don't have any of that stuff. If Netflix has the backup feature of streaming, which says we can invest in a movie coming out, even if it doesn't make its money via the theater, we can actually make it back on the streaming side eventually. Knowing that, that means that they can do more stuff. And it kind of takes me back to the 80s, where there was this laissez-faire sort of action where if a movie didn't come out via a movie theater, it came out direct to video. And direct to video was just as significant of a financial intake and success stature of a movie. And that's essentially what Netflix started kind of taking out. It took out the direct video sort of space of renting movies, because that's what Netflix started at, is a movie rental place, right? Before it became streaming, it was movie rentals. It made an impact. It attempted to even be bought out by Blockbuster, the biggest movie rental facility at the time, and they passed. Cool, got you. Netflix innovates, moves into streaming, disrupts everything, and now they're coming back and saying, okay, we recognize, like, if we want really strong movies, because again, my buddy Bill, big shout out to him, he notes a movie does better via streaming if it's done better in the theater. So,
Yeah.
as proof positive of that concept, I can see them investing in a studio that has deep roots, has a catalog of things that they can tap into. They
Yep.
can release things in theaters, be innovative, and worst case scenario, if it doesn't make a lot of money, they will just put it on streaming and they will eventually make their money back. So it's not really the risk that it used to be. And if it builds up a fandom in streaming, they can always bring it right back to theaters, because we see that a lot. We see movies come back to theaters. It's a way for theaters to make money, and they don't have to hold on to something, a time slot for a movie that's not performing well, for more than they need to. They can look at it and say, okay, 45 days, we want to see this kind of return on this movie. If we don't, it goes to streaming. Cool, not a problem. We're moving on to the next one. We know 45 days means that we can get more content out, because every 45 days we're looking for a refresh of what it is that's here. And ideally speaking, if we're getting that kind of refresh of content, there are more reasons for people to go to the movies.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great way to look at it. That is not a lot of people are factoring in, is the innovation that Netflix has created within movies, which can be a double-edged sword. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But if you use it in the right way, this could be very beneficial to movies. And so I think what they're scared about is what you were describing, that if a movie's not doing well, they take it out of theaters and put it on Disney Plus. And they're like, well, we need that movie in the theater as long as possible, because we need to make our money back as best we can. But at the same time, a lot of movies can lose money the longer that they're in theaters if people are not going to it and you're continuing to have showings. And so it's very interesting dynamic that happens. And now we've seen with movies, like you said, where when a movie is released in theaters and then it goes on to streaming, it does way better on streaming because the hype was there. People were talking about it. When it's well received, the word of mouth is fantastic. And now that you go to your streaming service, you can watch it again or for the first time. I think a lot of people are scared too of the mindset of, well, I can just watch it on streaming, or I'll just watch it when it comes out on streaming. And that's what scares these theater organizations. Michael O'Leary led cinema organization explained that the key to a successful industry overall is having a diverse, robust, and consistent product pipeline that responds to consumer demand. The number of films being produced for theatrical exhibition is slowly returning to pre-2019 levels. However, that growth is threatened by further consolidation. At best, an acquisition of Warner Brothers will stall the growth we have seen in the last 4 years. More realistically, however, it will result in a significant reduction of theatrical releases. I don't necessarily know if I can agree with him, because
Mhm.
you don't buy Warner Brothers to just have more movies on streaming. You buy Warner Brothers because they have a proven distribution track that has worked
Yes.
for
100
decades, that
years.
that 100 years, that they want to buy and take advantage of. And
Mhm.
so when you hear the word streaming, it is a red siren for movie goers, or for movie theater owners, to be
Right.
exact. And so all they hear is that, well, and they said the same thing, that they would have the same concerns with Paramount if Paramount was the one to buy it.
Mhm.
And so all they hear is streaming, streaming, streaming. That's what's going to happen. They're not going to put these on streaming. But Ted Sarandos is a businessman, and he
Mhm.
modeled Netflix to be successful and be the number one in streaming. When you buy Warner Brothers, he's going to model that to be number one in theaters. He sees the value in theaters. He sees the numbers going up year to year since COVID, and that 2026 is supposed to be the biggest year in theaters since 2019, when the pandemic hit. So
Mhm.
right before the pandemic hit. So I don't see Ted Sarandos buying a Warner Brothers just to have a more robust streaming network. So of course, DC, Harry Potter, all these IPs,
Mhm.
they are the juice, the stuff that you want to have when you buy it. But you don't buy Warner Brothers and disclude the distribution track that we've seen in 2025 make them the number one studio in theaters that year, and then
Right.
be like, nah, we're going to cancel that. That doesn't matter. Let's put it on streaming. That's just
Right.
not good business. And Ted Sarandos, if anything, is about good business. So I understand the concerns, but it doesn't track with why you would buy Warner Brothers in the first place. And I
I
know a lot of
agree.
people are going to say, well, it's the IP. It's more than the IP. Warner
You
Brothers
can
is
license the
more.
IP. He doesn't have to buy it to do that. Like, no, I think actually what if I were a theater owner, what I would
Mhm.
be more concerned about is not the acquisition of a studio. It is that there has been a change, if I'm not mistaken, that there used to be antitrust laws or something set up where a studio could not own a theater. Because obviously, in
Yes.
that
Yeah.
regard, the studio is incentivized to only play their movies at said theater.
Mhm.
Now, in this setup, with the way that Netflix has been traditionally an innovator to the experience of movie watching, people
Yep.
forget like it started off as a mail order movie distribution channel. You
Yeah.
got stuff in the mail. It wasn't even about streaming when it first started. So the idea of everyone is now caught up to streaming. Okay, cool. Netflix
What's the
goes, we're
next?
the
Yeah.
top there. What's the next? What's the place that
Yes.
everybody else is no longer at? They're no longer at the theaters. So we're going to do stuff to kind of set up coming back to movie theaters. Even if it's our theater, we're going to do it in a way that is insane that other people aren't thinking. I can see them doing where listen, if Netflix is listening, I got you guys. They could put together a theater
Yeah.
that
Put my
is a big
podcast on there.
facility. Yeah, absolutely. That's listen. I'm literally saying like that. They will have smaller screening rooms that you
Mhm.
can, get a group of friends together, and for $200, right? Collectively, y'all go and watch this movie, and it's streamed directly for you. You can stop it, you can start it, however you want to. The movie watching experience is yours to control. They just have a
That's
place
cool.
for you to do it. It's a very cool common third place. You don't have to worry about food. You don't have to worry about cleanup. It's like having a movie watch party, but you don't have to clean up after it.
Why
That's
wouldn't you do
dope.
that? Yeah,
Why
that's
wouldn't you
dope.
do that?
I love that. And I love what Adriana is saying, and I think it lends well to what we're saying. She says, I think that this acquisition is a trigger for change. It is time for the movie industry to evolve the viewer experience so that it
Yes.
provides the same or greater value as a home stream. Exactly what you're saying, that it's time to adapt. It's 2026. It's
She's
time
brilliant.
to take the next evolution of theater going. And why not have Netflix, who was the evolution of movies going
Yes.
to our house and then
Yes.
movies on demand, be the leader of that change in the theaters.
Yes.
Theaters are going to be here forever. I don't see them going away. And I hope that this Netflix merger is why theaters are not going to go away, because they're going to
Right.
change how we use movie theaters and
Mhm.
innovate it in a way that we never thought was possible. That is
Yes.
my hope.
Yes. Yes. I mean, imagine if they even integrated old school things back to it, right?
Mhm.
As we're having this big renaissance for physical media, what if you could go to the theater, right? And go home with
You get a
something.
copy of
Like
it?
you can actually
Yeah, you
go,
get it.
like that would be amazing, right? Maybe
You know,
maybe you go to the theater to rent a movie.
you just gave me the best idea. You know how, like, when Endgame and these big movies come out and the theater
Mhm.
going experience goes viral because everyone
Mhm.
starts cheering when Cap, lifts Mjolnir, and it's like
I
you
still watch that.
want to relive that experience. What
Mhm.
if you get to take that experience you had in the theater home with you, or it goes to your Netflix account, you stream
Yes.
exactly what you saw. So the cheering and stuff, you hear that at home. You're back
Yes.
in it
Yes.
like you were in the theater. That would
Did you
be
just describe the movie
awesome.
theater as like a theme park? And that's a whole theme attraction? I would absolutely
Like
jump
the
on that.
picture on the ride, you get
Yes.
that when
Yes.
you go home. You get to feel that experience of Cap lifting Mjolnir and everyone going crazy again
Come
and
on.
again if you choose to at home. That
Yes.
is
Yes.
there's all these things that we're not thinking of that could be a positive of this change. And everyone's
Mhm.
consumed about the negative of this change because they're scared. And I
Right.
totally understand that. Movie theater going experience is one of the most nostalgic things in everyone's life. Everyone
Mhm.
remembers a movie they saw when they were a child in theaters,
Yes.
walking through the halls,
Yes.
seeing the posters, and they don't want to lose that. And I totally get it, but it is changing, and we don't want to be left behind in the dust. We want to be there
Absolutely.
at the forefront and enjoy it. And so even with 11:30, Netflix season finales in IMAX, let's go. Like, look how well the ending of Stranger Things did in the
Yes.
theaters.
Yes.
That bad boy sold out, and it made the experience of the finale that much better because you're
Yes.
experiencing it
With
with
a
other
bunch of
people
people.
in a big bad way. That is the innovation we're talking about.
Here's the thing that I think also needs to be celebrated about that fact is that was actually more set up through the theaters than it was through Netflix. Those weren't
Right.
traditional ticket sales. That was more concession oriented stuff that benefits the
Yeah.
theaters directly. So even in that regard, like we have the understanding that Netflix has cracked down on password sharing and all that stuff that built a community, and they go,
Right.
this is why we don't want you to share the community that way. We're going to build a space for you to come and experience this together as a community, rebuilding what the theater is.
I love that. And I love the chat. It's getting me excited because it's like when you put these people in a room that love movies, love content, and aren't scared to see what the possibilities are on the other side. What can we
Yes.
do next with movie theaters? What can bring more people in the theater?
Mhm.
That makes more money for Netflix.
Yes, it does.
And
Yes, it
then
does.
once it goes to their streaming service, more people subscribe to Netflix. That's
Yep.
exactly what they want. And so I totally understand the catastrophic statement from theater owners, and it is
Mhm.
scary. But I think it does a disservice to what kind of innovation Netflix brings to movies as a whole. And there
Mhm.
are possibilities that this could reinvigorate how we go to the theater. And so that's what I hope to see. So
Yes.
let us know what you guys think. Do you agree with the statements from the theater owners? Do you think that there is a possibility that Netflix has ideas of how we can bring more butts into the seats and then to their streaming service? There is the and then. And so I think we got to take a step back, see what the possibilities are, and then see how they put that into action. And then we can judge. So drop a comment below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, we got a couple more topics, and then we are going to get out of here. And I'm going to the NFL fan experience at the Moscow.
Let's go.
And then Kevin said, what did he say? Unless Trump administration stops Netflix merger with WB, this deal is going to go through. Yeah, no, 100%. This is it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that this is almost done.
This is what's happening.
But
right.
We won't see the effects until a few years from now, because there is a lot of contracts with Warner Brothers that, through 2028, 2029. So it will be a minute before we start seeing the true effects of Netflix ownership of WB.
Right.
All right, guys. With that down, I wanted to move on to this. So Doomsday is coming. And there's a lot of questions surrounding it. We got the teaser trailers, as talked about earlier. We know that Cap's coming back. We know that Downey is Doom, and he's going to be here in a big bad way, because he better be. There's been no build up. And so there was a end credits scene of Thunderbolts. And apparently this was shot by the Russo brothers. This is a part of the movie. And so this was probably the most important end credits scene that we've seen thus far, besides the little one for Fantastic Four. And in this end credit scene, we see our Fantastic Four ship shooting down to Earth 616. And everyone assumes this is how the Fantastic Four gets to Earth. But apparently there might be someone else on this ship. This comes to us from yahoo.com. They say, Yahoo? No, they don't say that. They say, new spoilers may reveal who was on the Fantastic Four ship seen in the post-credit scene of Thunderbolts, and it may not be who you expect. While it may be assumed it was the Fantastic Four arriving, a new reveal suggests that they were not alone on the ship. Movie scooper Daniel Rickman confirmed reports that the passengers on the ship also include Dr. Doom and Steve Rogers. Chris Evans has been confirmed to return as Steve Rogers in Doomsday, but it is not clear what version of the character is featured in the movie. It makes sense that Dr. Doom would be on the ship, as the villain was teased in the post-credit scene of the Fantastic Four First Steps. This confirms that he belongs in the Fantastic Four's universe, maybe. And Avengers Doomsday will have to find a way to bring all these characters into Earth 616. So, which Steve Rogers is on the ship? If these are indeed the passengers of the Fantastic Four ship that arrives in Wakanda, which we saw in a short little teaser for the Avengers Doomsday teaser, Wakanda version, Steve Rogers' inclusion raises some big questions. Given that the Fantastic Four and Dr. Doom are coming from another universe, it would seemingly confirm that this version of Steve Rogers may not be the one from Earth 616. This would be a surprising decision, as the trailer we saw confirmed Steve Rogers' return very much made it seem like it was the version that went back and stayed with Peggy, and it's the one that we all knew and love in Earth 616 that we've seen thus far. Having it be a new version of the character would be possibly a disappointment to some fans, unless it was for a very good reason. We saw Hugh Jackman return as Wolverine and made a similar decision. Instead of undoing the ending of Fox X-Men character from Logan, it was confirmed that this was an alternate version of the character. And for that story, it made a lot of sense and turned out, in my opinion, to be a really beautiful version of what we could see Wolverine as, and play very well against the Deadpool that we know and love. So, of course, when dealing with multiverses and time travel, there are always other possibilities to consider.
Mhm.
And there is still an intriguing way that this could still be the original Steve Rogers while also hinting at his role in the movie. I want to ask you, Vic, what do you think about the reports now that Steve Rogers and Dr. Doom are on this Fantastic Four ship? And I've heard from people that have gotten privy to reading the script and have said that this is indeed true. Sorry, guys. I might just put this here just in case. I should have put it before. No, it's too late. This is speculation. We don't know, but there is more people that are getting to read the script and understand what the story is. So, Vic, what do you think? Do you think that, these reports are true that Dr. Doom and Steve Rogers are on the Fantastic Four ship that we saw? And what version of Captain America do you think could be on that ship?
So storytelling wise, I do like this concept, right? Because what I think ultimately the multiverse has not done well is it has not given
Right.
us other iterations of characters that we know and enjoy. The closest that we got was Multiverse of Madness, where we saw, other characters that had a different,
Yeah.
track of how they came out. Right. And it wasn't great, but it kind of gave us that, but nothing else really did, right? So I think one of the things that should be very important as a possibility, especially with the introduction of Doctor Doom, is for everyone to consider, and even in his presentation, that he's actually a good guy, that he is not the problem that we know him to be from comics, because he hasn't been
Right.
introduced as that. And so what will be great is if Doom is seemingly positioned as a good guy and Steve is not. I would say it would be very interesting if this is Hydra Steve, that this is Steve who, under machinations, we won't even get into exactly how it happened in the comics versus this, but under
Right.
machinations, he is one that actually helped win the war, survived the war, because he actually sided with Hydra. And that would be the greatest twist, is that Steve is actually the bad guy. That he's the one that is what everyone else is not paying any attention to, because it's been there the whole time. There's the joke of Endgame where, Steve is in the elevator and he quells an entire fight by saying, "Hail Hydra." What if he actually means it now? And no one else assumes that that's what he is.
That'd be cool.
That paints a
Yeah.
great picture. Great picture.
You're giving me the because this is just like, we're at this point where this is just so fun to talk about and theorize. We are back
Yes.
in it with the MCU, with Marvel, where it's like we want to
Mhm.
know, like, the possibilities are endless. And I feel like that John Hamm meme, like, ooh, it's like, and I'm just living in the
Right?
in the theories and in the leaks that are supposedly true.
Absolutely.
But I think there's another thing that people aren't really talking about, and that's
What you got?
on this ship, these guys
Mhm.
aren't like just hanging out, playing chess on the ship, playing that Star Wars chess game. They're not just
Mhm.
like chilling on this ship. So what exactly is going on this ship? Like, we saw in the teaser, Ben Grimm is talking to the Wakandans. And
Mhm.
so, we've seen trailers play with our minds, and it might not have been real. But on the ship, is Dr. Doom tied up and held captive by Fantastic Four, and this Steve Rogers helped them? Is Steve Rogers held captive and Fantastic Four is being forced to fly there via Dr. Doom? Like, what are the dynamics on the ship? Because it's cool to know, like, oh, okay, Fantastic Four, Doom, and Cap are all on the ship, but they're not all like playing tea time and having fun. There has to be some like things that are going on the ship. So I'm really wondering, like, what are they all doing on the ship together? That's really what I want to know. And if that's the case, like, does it really matter if it's Captain Steve, Captain Hydra, Captain America,
Right.
because it could be messing with us. It could be a misdirect. We have no idea. But what is the situation on the ship? Is this a hostage situation? Is this we're coming to rescue someone? We're escaping someone? Like, that's
Mhm.
really what I want to know, is what's happening on the ship. What do you think is happening on the ship? What do you think
I
is the
think
possibility? Yeah.
I think it's a rescue escape situation. I think that what this ultimately is going to set up is that Doomsday, and this is kind of an interesting sort of slowly forming theory of mine as a writer. Again, I don't know, so please don't, grain of salt, but possible spoilers. Is part of the reason why it's called Doomsday is because Doom is not actually the bad guy. Doom is a figure within this, and that just happens to be his name. The issue is that there's a greater whole of a problem. The incursions are happening and worlds are being destroyed. And though in some places these would be enemies, they have to work together because that's the thing that has to happen to save everybody. And it's one of the few story tropes that we've not really seen in the MCU take place where a bad guy has to actually side with the good guys because there's a bigger bad that they have to address. And that's one of those classic comic booky things where, oh man, this is our world too. We got to protect
Yeah.
everybody. And if that's the case, I think that becomes the thing where, yes, they could all be on the ship. There's distrust. There is, questionable motivations, but they've all experienced this, communicative sort of event where they're like I don't like Dooms, but he came and he showed us this thing and he's right. Like, we did the numbers. It is happening, and this is Hydra, and we don't like Hydra, but he's right. Like, this is happening, and we need
Yeah.
this guy. So that's the state of things, and part of the reason why I would love for them to go to Wakanda, because again, if these are these type of separated individuals, they should not know what is Wakanda, right? There's no
Yeah.
Wakanda in the Fantastic Four that we
How do they
saw.
know how to get there? It's hidden.
Exactly. So the idea should be that Wakanda is like this beacon of technology or understanding that they're coming there because they're like, we figure you, based on the things that you're producing, you are the best guess for how we can stave this off because we couldn't do it in these other places. We're going to try to do it here. Can we stay? Can we get refuge here? Because again, that's another thing that we've seen within the MCU so far is that Wakanda is a place that will take in refugees, and no matter what your background is, Winter Soldier was a killer. He was a wanted person throughout the globe. They took him in, was like, hey, no, you can stay here. You will be protected, and we will help you figure out what you need to do. I can see that being a case for what's happening there. Beyond that, I really don't know. And I'm so excited for the fact that I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's really good. I want to bring up something first. I got to say, hey Jeffrey, good day
Hello, hello.
in Australia. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Um, and I'm gonna get to yours, Kevin, and 11:30. I just wanted to say though, because I rewatch things way too much, and so I was watching Across the Spider-Verse again
Mhm,
last
mhm,
night, and Miguel O'Hara is talking about going to a different universe and filling that void and being with his daughter again, and because he was there, it caused an incursion, and everyone
mhm.
starts disappearing, and you can't mess with the timeline like that. And we've seen, and then my wife and I put on No Way Home, and we saw the timeline and the cracks and people seeping through too. And then with Doctor Strange, same kind of thing. And so I'm wondering, you know all these things that have happened have had to affect Doctor Doom's world, whether
Mhm,
it's Cap deciding to stay back with Peggy after returning the stones. Maybe he didn't
mhm,
return the stones properly, or just maybe him staying back really messed with the timeline. Whatever happened in No Way Home, whatever happened in Doctor Strange. There's all these things that have happened that could easily cause incursions and ruin other people's worlds. I truly believe that these things added up to Doctor Doom, who was fine, had a family. Maybe he was with Sue in this universe. had some kids. I don't know if it's from the Fantastic Four universe. It very well could be, or it very well could not be. But I
Right.
do see a possibility that whatever we did in 616 has had huge ramifications on his world, so much so that he lost everything. He lost his loved ones. He lost his kids. He lost his family. And so what greater revenge than going to these other universes, taking the Fantastic Four's kid? I had a kid with her. I'm taking your kid now. Taking Captain America's kid, taking Scott Summers' kid. So he's so mad that the optic blast shoots out. And he's really getting his vengeance because all these things that occurred ruined his world. And now he's on a rampage to get his world back or something ideal that he wants to live in, which is God Emperor Doom, where everything bows to him. He played nice. He played nice. He let you guys live your lives and do what you want to do, but you did it so much that you ruined his world, and now he's coming for everything that you love. And what do you think about that?
So, okay, you're playing on a lot of things that I really like. Doctor Doom would definitely be one of my favorite villains. His name is Victor. Like, I can't help but see a simpatico there. But
Yes, sir.
one of the things I think is important to recognize from the comics is that the incursion structure was not something necessarily instigated by Doom. So Emperor Doom became a de facto result of what happened, as he put himself in a position of, and he wasn't, again, spoilers, he wasn't the first person that could have taken the power. It was Doctor Strange who could have taken it and didn't. And Doom said, I'll do it. If we use that as the framework, what I would want to pose to you is not necessarily in a vengeful sense that something has happened to Doom and he's trying to get back. It has happened. But what we all have overlooked as fans is the one thing that the Ancient One tells Bruce Banner in Endgame that is true of this world. They do not have any Infinity Stones. And by them not having any, the threat that she says that could happen to these other places in time is very active towards the current MCU. They don't have Infinity Stones. So what if their lack of Infinity Stones is causing something to come and cause these incursions, and Doom is grabbing, we'll say, living embodiments that could in effect be like Infinity Stones. He's grabbing Franklin, who controls reality, right?
Yes.
Maybe he grabs Rachel Summers, who is like a living embodiment of the Mind Stone through the Phoenix Force. Like, he's grabbing people and bringing them to this space to try to stave off whatever is coming that could in fact be the thing that if you had Infinity Stones, this thing would never happen. It wouldn't even try. But because ours are gone, thank you, Thanos, because you got rid of them, you jerk. You set us up for something so much bigger of an issue than what, even he recognized. And Doom is trying his best to bring all these pieces together to handle it. And when it comes down to it, at the end, he's the only one that's willing to take on the responsibility of reshaping the universe. And there are going to be people that are going to be like, well, that's not right. And he's like, no one else did it. I was the one. Like, Doctor Strange, he was there. He was with me. And he chose not to do it. I had no choice. It was either that or we all die. If that makes me a bad person, then so be it. But I'm not giving you my power now.
Yeah.
I earned it because this is my choice.
There is similar aspects of what I was saying, but it fits more for sure. It definitely fits more. I really like that. Man, they better deliver, bro.
Come on.
I'm hearing great things about the script. Like, I'm hearing
good.
They did it again.
Good.
Let's look a little bit about, we're going to get to Kevin's question because I really like that. And we'll end this segment with Kevin's question, but I want to talk about 1130, who said, looks like Marvel leaked this to throw everyone off. It seems so fishy. We're getting leaks left and right for Doomsday. So do you think that this is a leak to throw us off, or that more because they push this, more and more people are seeing the script now, so more stuff is going to get out. And by the time we get to like March, April, like pretty much we're going to know what this story is going to be about.
I'd like to think that in all actuality, there are so many people that want this to succeed that these leaks are not real. That there's no way for these leaks to be real because
Right.
unfortunately, leaks don't necessarily, in my opinion, drive people to want to see something. They go, I don't need to see it because I already know. And I can see this being something where so many leaks are coming out that you have to come to see if what's true, what actually is true. And if they're smart, this is all part of their marketing where they go, this thing that we said, it didn't happen in the movie, but it is true in the multiverse. It is true in the multiverse here. This, like, all these things were very
that
possible.
darn
And that was
multiverse.
the point. Yes. Like you lean into it by saying that's the whole reason why you want to come see it, because all of those things could be true. And you have to come see it to see which one is true. If they're really good, they will take some direction from Across the Spider-Verse, and there will be different endings for different movies. So okay, so I don't know if you knew this. In Across the Spider-Verse, they have different dialogue, at least like 7 different versions of this movie. Did you know that?
They still do, like, now that it's on like streaming and stuff, or like
I don't know if it's still on
on
streaming, but when it was released, there were different versions. So like little quips and things like that were said weren't in all of the productions. There were different ones. So imagine if, and again, this could be a brilliant marketing tactic. You have all these things that could happen, and one version that you get in San Francisco has some things in it that what I get in Indiana does not. I have things in it that you don't get. What it forces is that will be a huge piece for people to go back to the movies to see it again. It forces people to talk, and it plays up on this idea of what are leaks in a multiversal story?
Yeah.
What does it even mean? You can hear something and it's true for you, but it's not true for me because it's not in my universe. Now you've made a meta multiversal thing.
That's wild.
And the only person that knows is Deadpool. That's what I would do. Like, he'd be the one person that would know, like, actually, there's this many different movies. Have Ryan Reynolds do that. How many different times will we go see this movie? A bunch.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to see it a bunch, even if it's the same.
Also true.
Even if it's the same ending, I'm seeing it multiple times.
Absolutely.
I want to bring up what Kevin was saying. So there is new management at Disney. I was going to talk about it, but I'm like, we're talking about so much Disney stuff anyways.
Sure.
Dana Walden and Josh D'Amaro, who are the new heads, you would say, right, of Disney, making the decisions moving forward. I don't know about MCU rebooting happening now. I think they brought these people on because they're part of the Disney family. They're part of the vision that's been occurring, especially Dana Walden on the creative side. Josh is more on the parks and attractions and stuff like that side. And so I think whatever was set up with Bob Iger and Kevin Feige and their plans for these movies, they ensured they had someone on the creative side like Dana Walden at the top to continue to see it through. So regardless of the new heads of studio coming in, they've been there. They've been there for a long time, especially Dana. She was up for the CEO role. And then they decided, let's keep her. They built it out. So if there's another Bob Chapek situation, we got someone on the creative side at the very top that will ensure nothing skips a beat.
Right.
So I really think, in my opinion, and you can speak on this next, I don't see them changing the plan about, if that is the plan, we got to see once we get closer, that the MCU reboot would still happen, even with this shift in management. What do you think?
I think, ideally speaking, if there is a reboot, it is much further off than what we are expecting. I think one of the biggest properties that could show how this could work that for whatever reason, no one has thought of like this is the simpatico. This is the similarity that we have, and it's right here in the house. Is the amount of time between the original trilogy of Star Wars and the prequel trilogy. There was a
Mhm.
very long time in between, and the idea of a reboot could just be that we've told this story. It's a big crescendo. It's been over 20 years. We've told this, and we're done for a while, and we're not going to touch it for 10 years. If there's a reboot, it's going to require new people to come in to do it, because it won't really be a reboot if we have any of the same voices that were there before. Now what we need
Right.
are for those people that were raised under this to come back and go, now what would you do? You've
So
seen
you think Kevin
what we
Feige would
do.
be out?
Listen, after 20 years of just the MCU, if I was
Yeah.
Feige, seeing how again everything crescendoed with Endgame, if you hit that level again, leave, because the opportunity for you to do it again is so small. That window, you're talking a pinprick of a pinprick that you got to hit with a bullet while moving. No, leave on that high note like you should have the first time, and go, and we're done. We are done. I'm not doing it. If somebody
Yeah.
else wants to, go for it. But in terms of box office, who has the box office as a producer like he would have? You know what I mean? Like he's hit the benchmarks.
Mm-hmm.
You either
100%.
die the hero, or you stay long enough to become the villain. And he's tasted that. And if he can get back to hero status, he's got nothing else to prove. Go ahead and step down.
Yeah, it's been, a lot of people forget he was on all those X-Men movies,
Yep.
all that stuff. So
Yep.
he's been doing it for 26 years, and
That's what I'm
that is
saying.
a lot, but he loves it. And I don't know if they're going to be ballsy enough to not replace him. It's his decision.
Mhm.
It's Kevin
Mhm.
Feige. But that is a huge vacuum when you lose someone that big.
Yes.
On
Yes.
top of that, they are full steam ahead with X-Men. And so, in my opinion, I think Kevin Feige never got to do X-Men like he wanted to because he
I can see
wasn't
that.
at the top. And so I
Right.
really think now that he fully owns X-Men, he can do exactly what he envisioned 26 years ago, but he didn't have that clout that he has
Mhm.
now to really do it. So I could see him owning that and then maybe piecing out. But I don't see the gap because I think they're full steam ahead with X-Men, with Jake Schreier coming in from Thunderbolts. And
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
really think they're going to go hard on X-Men and then build it out from there. And that's what I think they should do. Jeffrey, I see a lot of your comments. We are like at the end of this segment because we got to move on. I do just want to mention, he said, I think they need a huge mic drop at the end of part
Yes.
one. Huge. They can't repeat what happened in Infinity War. Wouldn't it be wild if the hero of these two movies is Thanos? Dang, that would be extremely wild for sure. And then, excuse me, what happened to Young Avengers? We know that these X-Men aren't going to survive these movies, right? Too.
Mhm.
This is the last movie for some of these actors. So I don't know if the Young Avengers, they're not young anymore. They're going to
Right.
be they're like 30 now. They're going to be champions. Two, we have heard rumblings that Champions will be more of a TV series. And so I don't know how much they're going to be involved with these big movies. But you never know. So
True.
let us know what you guys think. What do you think about getting back to the main topic, Captain America and Doctor Doom being on that Fantastic Four ship that we saw in the post-credit scene of Thunderbolts? What versions of Captain America could it be?
Mhm.
Drop a comment below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, we are almost out of here, and we've been very, very comic book heavy. So I want to switch gears a little bit because, as you
Mhm.
know, we got the Oscars coming up soon. We got some very prestigious movies for contenders for next year for the Oscars. And we know that right now is the time where we hear some announcements of big writers, big names attaching
Mhm.
themselves to the projects that they hopefully can see themselves in that tuxedo on the big stage the following year. And we have a project coming together very quickly involving one of the biggest stars right now in Austin Butler. This comes to us from Deadline. They
Mhm.
say, here is a package that has several major studios off to the races. Deadline is hearing that Austin Butler is attached to star in a movie about infamous cyclist Lance Armstrong, with Edward Berger on board to direct.
Wow.
King Richard scribe Zach Balin is penning the spec, with Scott Stuber and Nick Nesbitt producing along with Berger, Nick Lick, and others. Sources say the package has already caused a frenzied bidding war with several offers in from major studios. Insiders say that Stuber has been working for some time to get Armstrong's life rights. For so long, in fact, it precedes Stuber's new United Artists deal, which is why the project is going to market instead of Amazon MGM Studios
Wow.
getting first dibs at it. Prior to relaunching UA and setting a deal with Amazon, there were a handful of films Stuber was planning to produce separately, and this project was one of them. Insiders say Amazon top brass are completely supportive of this plan. Hollywood has always been enamored with the Armstrong story, as it involves the highest of highs and the lowest of lows.
Very so.
Armstrong
Very much
famously survived cancer and returned to the world of pro cycling, where he would go on to win the famed Tour de France an incredible 7 consecutive times. Hollywood would soon fall in love with that story, with several A-listers chasing the role of a lifetime. But before that story could be told, Armstrong, after denying it for years, ultimately admitted to blood doping, ultimately ending his career. Hollywood did end up telling that story, with Ben
Mhm.
Foster ultimately portraying the actor as more of a villain in the 2015 movie The Program, which Armstrong was not a part of. This, which combines elements of F1 the movie and Scorsese's Raging Bull and Wolf of Wall Street, will cover the life and career of Armstrong, capturing the highs and lows of his extraordinary journey. The current project being shot will mark the first time Armstrong has signed off on his rights. Stuber and Armstrong have had a relationship for some time, and the producer made it clear to Armstrong they needed to tell everything or he didn't want to do the film. After many discussions over a long period, Armstrong signed off on it. And so, with this sign off, the hope is to have the film be a cross between F1, Oscar nominated, The Wolf of Wall Street, Oscar nominated. And insiders say Balin is not only talking to Armstrong, but also spent time with people in Armstrong's life with nothing off limits. Stuber's no stranger to producing films about iconic public figures, having just worked on the Bruce Springsteen Deliver Me From Nowhere. And Butler earned an Oscar nomination with his portrayal of Elvis Presley with Baz Luhrmann's film. So it seems like we're seeing the rumblings of a very high-profile movie with all the right pieces. Edward Berger, of course, of Conclave fame, which is also Oscar love. So it seems like these bad boys are trying to put something together so they can be in those nice black and whites at the Oscars on stage, getting their golden man. So I want to ask you, based on the people involved in this project, obviously a big star within Austin Butler and the writing duo behind it, and Lance Armstrong signing off saying, tell it all, I give you my blessing. What do you think about this project, and how far can this bad boy really go with all these powerhouse names behind it? Does this,
this could
attract you
be
more?
this could be huge. This could be huge. Obviously, this is a pop cultural piece that we live through. We know what this story is. We know how far it goes. Like you said, the highest of highs, the lowest of lows. The opportunity for Lance Armstrong specifically to take more ownership of his own narrative story is a big deal. He's getting older. Who knows what state of health he actually is in these days? Unfortunately, cancer does have a high recurrence rate. And this could be something that, in terms of his legacy, this is his last chance to really kind of put a bow on what that story actually looks like. And good or bad, he's like, look, I'm a person. This is what happened. I'm just going to tell the story. And to have the best players possible to tell that story will do nothing but kind of like put that staple of where he stands in history, because I think that's kind of the thing. This is a matter of legacy, and these are great players to help tell that story. If you want to do it right, this is how you do it.
No, 100%. These are some big players, and for those uninitiated with Stuber, he's currently working on several big films, including Lizard Music with
Hmm.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson and Benny
That's
Safdie's
right.
latest collab, a film adaptation of Frida McFadden's #1 New York Times bestselling psychological thriller, The Tenant, and a new version of Highlander
Mm.
starring Henry Cavill. And most recent project included Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein for Netflix. So
Hmm.
he is on a run right now, and it makes sense that he wants to get on that black and white and
Absolutely.
collect that golden man. And so, with Berger, he's been on a run as well. Conclave, I don't know if you've seen it.
Hmm.
Was a fascinating movie. It might not be, they made a story about popes exciting. That
Yes,
is
they
not
did.
an
Yes, they
easy
did.
task to do. And
Mm-mm.
Edward Berger, he has been on a run directing wise for quite some time. He did Conclave, he did All Quiet on the Western Front. He filmed some
Hmm.
episodes of Your Honor, starring Breaking Bad's Bryan Cranston. So
That's
this
right.
guy is hot right now, and it seems like this is the right project to get him back in the Oscars race. And we've seen this happen in Hollywood so much, where it's like they get that Oscar love, they're on the stage. What project can get them back in there? And so
Right.
this seems like a project that is fascinating in itself, but also very tailor made for the awards season. So
Hmm.
it's really exciting. Jeffrey says, I'm still a huge fan of Armstrong. I saw his extra tough summer training ground in Colorado, and my hat is still off to him. Austin Butler's a great choice. And
Hmm.
I totally agree. There are still people on the fence. It's a very divisive pop culture character. This is a
Yeah.
guy that
Yeah.
came back from cancer, won the Tour de France 7 times, got caught doping, having other
Hmm.
cyclists dope, providing it to them, made us believe with the Live Strong bands, which was like the biggest thing at the time. And
Right.
so many ups and downs, and such a polarizing figure. And what better representation to have than Austin Butler, who is one of the hottest actors doing it right now. And,
Hmm.
don't let the pretty face fool you, but this guy's turn in Dune 2 as one of the ultimate villains in sci-fi that we've seen
Hmm.
was one of the best turns that I've seen, arguably, since Heath Ledger took on the role of Joker. Not at that level, but
Sure.
at someone who you were like, I can't see it. And then it's like, whoa, this
Oh
guy,
my gosh. Yeah.
this
Yeah.
this guy can act and is scary. So
Hmm.
even if you weren't a big Dune fan, his performance
Definitely
definitely
understand that.
was something that blew me away. So
Hmm.
I'm excited for this. I think this has a lot of potential. I loved King Richard, with whatever happened after with Will Smith is,
Right.
something else in its own right. But the movie itself,
It was really
the
good.
storytelling of the, Venus and Serena story and their
Hmm.
father, and it was such a beautiful film, and the pacing, and it was just, it flowed so well. And that's what you want to see in this kind of
Right.
movie, is like the flow of the movie. Once you're in it, you're with these characters till the end, and being with Lance Armstrong on his journey till the end is going to be such a crazy up and down ride that I, for
Absolutely.
one, am super excited for.
Love it. Love it.
Woo! All right, guys. Well, tell us what you guys think. Are you excited for another Lance Armstrong movie? I did like that Ben Foster one. I thought it was very good, but he was the ultimate villain in that. And I think this is really the human story
Hmm.
of what it means to be Lance Armstrong. And I think that needs to be told. And I, for one, am really excited to see it. So drop a comment below and let us know your guys' thoughts. All right, guys. We did it. We got through it. Victor, I just want to say thank you so much again for
True
coming
honor.
on, being here with us. It's so great and easy to talk to you and talk
Thank
about
you.
the things that we love, and I always enjoy it. So I hope this isn't the last time. I hope you come join us again and talk
Anytime.
to us. Awesome. Where can the good people find you, my friend?
You guys can find me most social media platforms. At Vantage In-House is my publishing imprint. Or if you specifically look up Hardest Working Man in Comics, Google it. I'm the guy that shows up. Follow me on all the things. We've got some amazing things that are happening right now on my publishing side. I have a new campaign called The Best Kept Secret in Comics. And one of the key pieces of it is helping you figure out where to start within the Vantage In-House universe with some key questions to give you kind of a more personalized introduction to everything. So very excited to roll that out.
I love it. I love it. Well, it was a pleasure having you on here, and I can't wait to get you back. You guys in the chat, thank you so much for being involved, being part of this. You know, I love this community so much. And like I always preach, these things are subjective. They all hit us different ways. As long as you can have a respectful conversation about it, that's what this is all about. And I love having you guys here and being part of the conversation. So please like, subscribe at the Evan Edition. Be here for the journey. For those of you that don't have time to watch on YouTube, we are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So please be a part and comment. I love seeing those conversations through the comments, because that's what this community is all about. And that's what makes me so happy to see is being involved. And so thank you again, you guys. Jeffrey, 1130, Kevin, Adriana, all you guys, really a pleasure having you in the chat. And for everyone else tuning in, thank you for being here as well. Have a great rest of your weekend. Have fun. Watch the Super Bowl. I cannot wait to see Bad Bunny. He is absolutely going to crush it.
Let's go.
And we will see you guys next time. Take care, my friends. Bye-bye.
It's the Evan Edition. The Evan Edition. The Evan Edition. The Evan Edition. It's the Evan Edition. The Evan Edition. The Evan Edition. The Evan Edition. It's the Evan Edition.